Behind the avoidant person's withdrawal, their inconsistency, their hot and cold behavior, their apparent indifference, or their claims that they're not ready for relationship, or that they need space, or that they want to be alone, lies a truth they cannot express and might not even fully admit to themselves. They only want you. Not in the casual way where you're one of several people they're interested in, or where you're simply the current option they're exploring. You are the person they want in ways that terrify them precisely because the wanting is so singular, so intense, so genuine, that it threatens every defense they've constructed. The avoidant person is accustomed to maintaining emotional distance from everyone, to keeping multiple people at arm's length, to never allowing anyone to matter too much. But with you, something is different. You broke through their defenses in ways others haven't. You matter to them in ways that feel dangerous and overwhelming. They think about you constantly, even while they're pulling away from you. They compare everyone else to you and find others lacking. They're affected by your presence and your absence in ways they cannot control and cannot admit. This singular focus on you, this reality that you're the person they actually want, despite their patterns suggesting they don't want anyone, is exactly what triggers their most intense defensive responses. The more they want you, the more threatened they feel. The more you matter, the more they need to create distance. The more genuine their feelings are, the more they need to hide or deny those feelings. Their entire defensive system is activated most intensely with the people who matter most, which means their worst behavior is directed at you precisely because you're the one they actually want. Understanding this paradox that the avoidant person's withdrawal and distance are occurring specifically because you're the person they want, not despite that wanting, illuminates both the depth of their internal conflict and the tragedy of their patterns that prevent them from being with the very person their heart has chosen. They only want you, but this wanting is so terrifying that they have to push you away to manage the fear it creates. Why the avoidance focus on you is different from their other patterns. The avoidant person's relationship with you represents something fundamentally different from their typical patterns. And this difference is evident in specific ways that reveal you're not just another person they're casually engaging with or keeping at distance. Understanding these differences illuminates why you specifically have triggered such intense responses from them, and why their behavior with you might be even more confusing and contradictory than their behavior in previous relationships or with other people currently in their life. The first indicator that you're different is the intensity of the avoidant person's response to you, both positive and negative. With most people, the avoidant person maintains consistent emotional distance that allows them to engage without too much internal activation. They can be friendly, can spend time with people, can even date casually without experiencing intense feelings or significant defensive reactions. But with you, their responses are amplified. When they're connected to you, they experience genuine joy, attraction, engagement that goes beyond surface pleasure. And when they're pulling away from you, their withdrawal is more pronounced, their defenses are stronger, their discomfort is more intense. This amplification in both directions reveals that you affect them more deeply than others do, that you've penetrated their defenses in ways that create both genuine connection and genuine threat. The avoidant person's focus on you is different because they cannot easily dismiss or forget you the way they can with others. The avoidant is typically skilled at moving on, at emotionally divesting from relationships that end or that become complicated, at finding new people to focus on so they don't have to sit with loss or longing. But with you, this typical pattern doesn't work as smoothly. They think about you when they're trying not to. They compare others to you, even when they're trying to move on. They're aware of what you're doing or who you might be with in ways that reveal ongoing preoccupation. They might even reach out after periods of distance, something they don't typically do because they cannot maintain their usual detachment. This inability to easily move on or forget reveals that you've created an imprint on them that their defensive strategies cannot simply erase. The quality of connection the avoidant person experiences with you is different from what they experience with others. With most people, the avoidant can maintain surface level engagement that feels safe precisely because it lacks depth. But with you, they experienced or experience moments of genuine intimacy, of feeling understood and accepted, of being able to relax their defenses, at least partially. They might have shared things with you they don't typically share. They might have felt seen by you in ways that were both comforting and terrifying. They might have experienced compatibility and ease in your presence that made them recognize what relationship could feel like if they could sustain it. This quality of connection is exactly what makes you dangerous to their defended equilibrium and what makes you impossible to forget or replace easily. The avoidant person's behavior with you reveals internal conflict that isn't present or isn't as pronounced with others. With people who don't matter as much, the avoidant can simply maintain distance without much internal struggle. But with you, there's visible war between their desire for connection and their need for self-protection. They pursue you and then withdraw. They open up and then shut down. They make plans and then cancel. They express care and then act indifferent. This inconsistency is not just typical avoidant behavior. It's evidence of genuine internal conflict between what they want you and the relationship and what they fear the vulnerability that having you would require. The conflict is more intense with you because the stakes are higher, because you matter more, because choosing you means risking more than they've risked with others. The avoidant person's focus on you is singular in ways that contradict their typical pattern of maintaining multiple options or connections at safe distances. Avoidance often keeps several people in rotation, maintaining surface connections with multiple people so that no single person becomes too important. But with you, they might find themselves unable to engage genuinely with others, unable to develop interest in other connections that don't compare to what they experienced with you. Even if they date others or maintain other relationships, these feel empty or hollow compared to what they had or have with you. This singular focus reveals that you're not interchangeable with others, that what you provide or who you are is specific and rare in ways that make replacing you impossible. The fear the avoidant person experiences with you is different and more intense than what they experience with others. They're afraid of losing you in ways they don't fear losing others. They're afraid of being vulnerable with you in ways that feel more threatening than vulnerability with others would feel. They're afraid of needing you in ways that trigger their deepest attachment wounds. This heightened fear is paradoxical evidence that you matter more, that you represent something genuinely important to them. If you didn't matter, if you were just another person, the fear wouldn't be so intense. The fear is proportional to the importance, and the intensity of their defensive response to you reveals how much you actually mean to them. The avoidant person's awareness of you and attention to you is different from their awareness of others. They notice things about you that they don't notice about other people. They remember details you've shared. They're attuned to your emotional states in ways they're not attuned to others. They track your life and your activities with interest that goes beyond casual curiosity. This heightened attention and awareness reveals that their mind is focused on you in ways that indicate genuine attachment and investment, even if their behavior doesn't consistently reflect this internal focus. The signs that reveal you're not just another person they're avoiding. Beyond the general differences in how the avoidant person relates to you versus how they relate to others, there are specific behavioral signs that reveal you hold a unique position in their emotional landscape, that you're the person they actually want, despite their patterns suggesting they want to be alone, or that they're equally distant from everyone. These signs might be subtle or might contradict their overt claims about not wanting relationship, but they consistently point to the truth that you are special to them in ways that both attract and terrify them. The first sign is that the avoidant person keeps finding reasons to stay in contact with you, even after creating distance or ending the relationship. They might reach out with questions or excuses to talk. They might maintain connection through social media interactions. They might suggest staying friends even after a romantic relationship has ended. They might show up in places they know you'll be. All of these behaviors reveal that they cannot fully let you go, that they need to maintain some form of connection, even if they cannot maintain the intimacy that a romantic relationship would require. This inability to fully disconnect is specific to you with others. They can make clean breaks and move on without maintaining contact, but with you, the pull is too strong to sever completely. The second sign is that the avoidant person is affected by your attention to or involvement with others in ways that reveal jealousy or possessiveness they don't typically display. They might become cold or withdrawn when they perceive you're interested in someone else. They might make comments about people you spend time with. They might suddenly reach out more when they sense you're pulling away or moving on. They might express opinions about your dating life even when they themselves ended the relationship or created the distance. This territorial behavior reveals that they want you to themselves, even if they cannot be with you, that the thought of you with someone else triggers their anxiety and loss aversion in ways that wouldn't happen if you were just another person they were casually connected to. The third sign is that the avoidant person compares others unfavorably to you, either explicitly or through their behavior. They might date others, but find themselves thinking about how those people don't measure up to you. They might make references to things you did or qualities you have when discussing what they want in a partner. They might struggle to develop genuine interest in others because those connections feel flat compared to what they experienced with you. They might even tell you directly that no one compares to you, that they haven't found anyone else who matches what you provided. This comparison pattern reveals that you've set a standard in their mind that others don't meet, that you represent ideal, or at least the closest they've come to what they actually want. The fourth sign is that the avoidant person displays vulnerability with you that they don't display with others. They might share aspects of their history or their struggles that they typically keep private. They might let their guard down in ways that reveal their softer or more wounded parts. They might seek your opinion or your support during difficult times, even while maintaining distance in other ways. They might cry or express fear or show emotion with you that they carefully control around everyone else. This selective vulnerability reveals that you feel safer to them than others do, that they trust you enough to drop their defenses at least partially, which makes you both the person they want and the person they most fear because you've seen behind the mask. The fifth sign is that the avoidant person responds to you differently than they respond to others in terms of their availability and their effort. They might be more consistently available to you than to other people, or conversely, they might be more inconsistent with you because you trigger more anxiety. They might put in effort for you that they don't put in for others, planning special dates, remembering important details, going out of their way even while they're simultaneously pulling away. Or they might withdraw more from you than from others precisely because you matter more. The difference in how they treat you versus others, whether that difference is more positive attention or more defensive withdrawal, reveals that you occupy a special position in their emotional hierarchy. The sixth sign is that the avoidant person cannot articulate clear reasons for why they can't be with you that make logical sense. When they're ending things or creating distance. Their explanations are vague or contradictory or don't align with the reality of the relationship. They might say they're not ready for relationship, but then date others casually. They might say you're incompatible, but struggle to name specific incompatibilities. They might say they need space, but then reach out intermittently. This inability to provide coherent explanation reveals that the real reason is their internal fear and conflict, not anything about you or the relationship, and that they're pushing away something they actually want because they cannot handle the intensity of wanting it. The seventh sign is that the avoidant person's defensive behaviors are most pronounced with you. They're more withdrawn, more critical, more hot and cold, more confusing with you than they are with others. This might seem to suggest you matter less, but actually, it reveals the opposite. Their defenses are most activated where they're most vulnerable, and they're most vulnerable with the person who matters most. If you didn't matter, if you were just another casual connection, they wouldn't need such strong defenses. The intensity of their defensive response is proportional to the intensity of their actual feelings, which means their worst behavior towards you is paradoxical evidence that you're the person they care about most. The eighth sign is that people close to the avoidant person might indicate that you're different from others they've dated, or that the avoidant person talks about you differently. Friends or family might mention that they've never seen the avoidant person this affected by someone before. They might comment that the avoidant talks about you more than they've talked about previous partners. They might observe that the avoidant seems more conflicted or more engaged or more affected with you than they've been with others. These external observations from people who know the avoidance patterns confirm that you represent something unique in their experience, that you've broken through their defenses in ways others haven't, that you hold position in their emotional life that others don't occupy. How their fear of wanting you creates the push-pull dynamic. The push-pull dynamic that characterizes the avoidant person's relationship with you, the pattern of moving close and then retreating, of expressing interest and then withdrawing, of seeming invested and then acting indifferent, is not random or meaningless. It's direct manifestation of their internal conflict between wanting you and fearing what wanting you means. Understanding this mechanism illuminates why their behavior seems so contradictory and why the inconsistency itself is evidence that you matter deeply to them rather than evidence that they don't care. The push phase of the dynamic occurs when the avoidant person's desire for connection temporarily overpowers their fear. During these periods, they're drawn to you, they reach out, they make plans, they're warm and engaged. They allow themselves to experience and express the wanting that's actually always there underneath their defenses. They might be affectionate, vulnerable, present in ways that feel genuine and that create hope, that this time will be different, that they've overcome their patterns and can sustain the connection. During the push phase, you're seeing the avoidant person's authentic desire, their genuine attraction to you, their real feelings that exist when their defenses are lowered. This phase is not manipulation or performance. It's them allowing themselves to move toward what they actually want. But the push phase creates conditions that trigger the pull phase. As they move closer to you, as they allow themselves to want you and to show that wanting, they begin experiencing anxiety that intimacy creates for them. They recognize they're becoming vulnerable, becoming attached, becoming dependent on you for happiness or validation. They notice they're thinking about you constantly, that they miss you when you're apart, that your responses to them affect their emotional state. All of these are signs of normal, healthy attachment, but for the avoidant person, they're warning signals that they're losing control, that you're becoming too important, that they're at risk of the hurt they've spent their life protecting against. This mounting anxiety triggers their defensive system and initiates the pull phase. The pull phase occurs when the avoidant person's fear overwhelms their desire and they need to create distance to restore their sense of safety and control. They withdraw emotionally or physically. They become less responsive, less available, less engaged. They might cancel plans or make excuses for why they can't see you. They might become cold or critical, suddenly focusing on things about you or the relationship that bother them. They might even create conflict or disappear entirely without explanation. During the pull phase, you're experiencing the avoidant person's defensive response to the threat they perceive, and the threat is specifically the intimacy and attachment that the push phase was creating. The more successful the push phase was at creating closeness, the more intense the pull phase will likely be, because more closeness equals more threat in the avoidance experience. The pull phase serves multiple functions for the avoidant person. It creates the physical and emotional distance they need to reduce the anxiety that closeness triggered. It tests whether you'll pursue them or accept the distance, giving them information about your attachment and investment. It protects them from continued vulnerability by making intimacy impossible while they're withdrawn. It allows them to regulate their emotions and their sense of self that felt threatened during the close period, and it punishes you, often unconsciously, for having gotten too close, for having made them feel too much, for having triggered their vulnerability. The pull phase is not about you doing anything wrong. It's entirely about their internal experience of threat and their need to manage that threat through creating distance. During the pull phase, the avoidant person often experiences their own distress that they don't show you. They might miss you while they're pushing you away. They might feel guilty about their withdrawal. They might be confused about why they can't maintain the connection that felt good during the push phase. They might question their own patterns and wonder why they're sabotaging something they want. But this internal distress doesn't typically lead to them changing their behavior or reaching back out quickly. Instead, they sit with the distance until their anxiety about intimacy decreases, until they feel safe and controlled again, until they miss the connection enough that their desire begins to exceed their fear again. The return to push phase occurs when the avoidant person's desire for connection builds back up during the pull phase, when they've had enough distance that they feel safe again, when they miss you enough that it overrides their fear. They might reach out as if nothing happened, expecting to pick up where you left off before the pull phase. They might offer minimal explanation for their withdrawal, or might reframe it in ways that don't acknowledge their patterns. They might be warm and engaged again, recreating the conditions that made the push phase feel good. And the cycle begins again, with closeness building until anxiety triggers another withdrawal. This push-pull pattern is exhausting and painful for you, creating constant instability and uncertainty about where you stand and whether the relationship can work. But understanding that the pattern itself is evidence that you're the person they want helps contextualize their confusing behavior. The push-pull only happens with people who matter enough to trigger both the desire for connection and the fear of it. With people who don't matter as much, the avoidance simply maintains consistent distance without the dramatic fluctuations. The fact that they keep pushing toward you reveals they want you. The fact that they keep pulling away reveals they're terrified of how much they want you. Both phases are responses to the same underlying truth. You matter to them in ways they cannot handle, and they're caught in an endless cycle of moving toward what they want and fleeing from what they fear. What it means that they only want you, but still can't be with you. The most painful truth about the avoidant person's singular focus on you, about the reality that you're the person they actually want, despite their patterns and behavior suggesting otherwise, is that this wanting does not translate into capacity to be with you in the consistent, committed, emotionally present way that healthy relationship requires. They only want you, but they still can't be with you. Understanding what this means and what it reveals about both their limitations and your situation is crucial for making decisions about how to respond to their patterns and whether to maintain hope that things could change. The fact that they only want you but can't be with you reveals that their attachment wounds and defensive patterns are stronger than their desire for relationship with you. This is devastating truth because it means love is not enough. Compatibility is not enough. Being the person they want is not enough to overcome the barriers their wounds have created. The avoidant person's fear of intimacy, their terror of vulnerability, their need to protect themselves from the hurt they believe relationships inevitably bring. These forces are more powerful in their psychological system than their genuine feelings for you. They might love you, might want you, might recognize you're special, but their defensive system is still more powerful than their attachment system, and so the defenses win, keeping them from being able to sustain the intimacy you both desire. This situation means that you occupy a unique and painful position. You're the person they want, but also the person they cannot allow themselves to have. You represent both their deepest desire and their greatest threat. You're the person who could provide the love and acceptance they long for, and you're also the person who, by providing that love, makes them feel most vulnerable and endangered. This double bind means that being the person they want does not make your position easier or more secure. In some ways, it makes things harder because you're the person who triggers their most intense defensive responses precisely because you matter most. The reality that they only want you but can't be with you also means that you cannot wait for them or organize your life around the hope that they'll overcome their patterns. Some avoidants do eventually address their attachment wounds through sustained therapeutic work and develop capacity for healthy, intimate relationship. But this transformation is rare and requires extraordinary commitment and discomfort that most avoidants are not willing to undertake. It requires them to sit with the very feelings they've spent their entire life avoiding, to challenge beliefs about themselves and relationships that have felt true since childhood, to practice vulnerability repeatedly, despite the terror it creates. Most avoidants never do this work. Instead, repeating their patterns across multiple relationships and remaining fundamentally unchanged. Understanding that they only want you but can't be with you means recognizing that their feelings for you are real but insufficient. The feelings are genuine. They do want you. You do matter to them. You are the person they would choose if they could overcome their limitations. But feelings alone cannot sustain relationship. Relationship requires action, consistency, vulnerability, communication, commitment, all of which the avoidant person struggles to provide, regardless of how strong their feelings are. Their inability to translate their feelings into sustainable relationship behaviors means that the relationship cannot work in its current form, that their wanting you is not enough to make partnership viable. This situation also means that accepting their patterns in the hope that your love will eventually heal them, or that your patience will eventually be rewarded, is likely to lead to years of pain without resolution. The fantasy that love conquers all, that if you just love them enough, or understand them well enough, or give them enough space, they'll eventually be able to overcome their patterns, is not supported by what we know about attachment wounds and avoidant patterns. Avoidant patterns are deeply embedded and self-reinforcing. They don't typically change just because someone loving is present. They change only through deliberate therapeutic work that addresses the core wounds, and that involves consciously practicing different responses to intimacy, despite the discomfort this creates. The fact that they only want you, but can't be with you, means that you face difficult choice. Accept the limited, inconsistent, painful relationship they can currently provide, or walk away from someone you care about, who genuinely cares about you, but who cannot meet your needs. Neither option feels good. Accepting their limitations means resigning yourself to a relationship that will likely never provide the security, consistency, and emotional presence you deserve. Walking away means losing someone who genuinely matters to you and who sees you as the person they want, but staying in hope that things will change without evidence that they're doing the work required for change is choosing ongoing pain and preventing yourself from being available for a relationship with someone who already has the capacity to show up in ways the avoidant person cannot. The reality that they only want you but can't be with you also means that their behavior should not be taken personally as rejection of your worth or as indication that you're inadequate. Their inability to be with you is about their limitations, not about your value. You could be perfect for them in every way, and you might be, and they would still struggle with the same patterns because the patterns are responses to their internal wounds rather than responses to your qualities or behaviors. Understanding this helps protect your self-worth from the damage their inconsistency and withdrawal might otherwise create. You're not the problem. Their capacity is the problem. This situation means that the healthy response is to make decisions based on their actual behavior and capacity, rather than on their feelings or their stated desires. They might say they want you, might demonstrate through various signs that you're special to them, might genuinely feel that you're the person they want. But if their behavior doesn't reflect this, if they're inconsistent, if they withdraw, if they can't commit, if they can't provide emotional presence, then you must base your decisions on the behavior rather than on the feelings underneath it. Behavior is what you experience. Behavior is what determines whether a relationship is viable. Their internal wanting of you might be genuine, but it's their behavior that determines whether they can actually be a good partner to you. The painful truth is that they only want you, and this wanting is real and genuine and more intense than what they feel for others. But their wanting is not enough to overcome the barriers their wounds have created. You can be the right person, can be the person they choose in their heart, can be the person they would be with if they could overcome their patterns, and still not be the person they can actually sustain relationship with, given their current capacity. This reality is heartbreaking because it means that sometimes love and compatibility and being wanted are not sufficient for relationship to work, that psychological health and capacity matter as much as or more than feelings and desire, and that you must make your decisions based on what actually exists rather than on what could exist if they were different. They only want you, but until they do the work to become capable of sustaining intimacy with the person they want, that wanting remains trapped inside their defended walls, unable to be expressed in ways that create the relationship both of you might genuinely desire, but that only you currently have the capacity to maintain.